What moves should you make on LinkedIn to attract clients effectively this year? With the platform constantly evolving, understanding the do's and don'ts of LinkedIn can feel like a puzzle. In this episode, you'll hear from a LinkedIn marketing agency owner on how to make LinkedIn work for you. We dive into what's working for content creation and engagement and explore how to avoid mistakes users commonly make on LinkedIn. Whether LinkedIn's been your playground for a while or you're just dipping your toes in, this episode is packed with practical tips and tricks you won't want to miss. So let's get into it and find out how to leverage LinkedIn to attract clients. Tune in. Welcome to the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you're a marketer, a consultant, or a creative who's on the journey of growing from solopreneur to agency owner, follow along because I pull back the curtains on the realities of growing and running a scalable service-based business and building a lean team. I'm your host, Audrey Joy Kwan. I know what it takes to build an agency. Whether it's from solo to 3, 5, or 20, I've done it, including supporting an agency owner to sell and exit. I've coached and consulted over 120 marketers, creatives, and consultants, and I've been behind the scenes of 7-figure businesses. I also have a master's degree in communications specializing in organizational development. All this to say, I know what it takes to grow, lead, and operate a multiple 6- and 7-figure small but mighty agency. And here on this podcast is where we'll dive right in. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. I'm on an adventure this year to show up on LinkedIn more consistently. I'm finding it's a platform that I enjoy being on, and as I'm spending more time on LinkedIn, of course, I'm curious about what is working and not working on the platform. So what better way to dive into that question than to bring an agency owner who specializes in LinkedIn to the podcast. Welcome, Louise.
Hi, Audrey. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me onto the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. I am a listener. Can't always say that about podcasts you're invited onto, but I am. I live in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I run a LinkedIn-focused agency where we do content management for clients, and we also do training and workshops. And I've been in business about 10 years and niched down to LinkedIn about 5 years ago. I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan, and I live at home with my husband, 3 kids, and a spaniel dog who's called Bruce.
I'm a dog person too. Our dog, Jungle, she was a Yorkie, passed away a few years ago, and we're thinking about getting a new puppy this year. I'm one of those people who goes on a walk in our neighborhood every morning and stops to say hello to everybody else's dog. So I love a great story about finding your niche. You were in the business of social media for 5 years before you decided to narrow it down to LinkedIn. What's the story behind that?
At the time, I had noticed when I spent time on Facebook and Instagram versus the time I spent on LinkedIn, I got to doing business much quicker on LinkedIn. So it seemed like a good fit. And also 5 years ago, Facebook and Instagram were all the trend for business. So not a lot of people were saying, oh, I'm a LinkedIn person. So it was another way of kind of standing out a little bit because there weren't that many people who decided to specialize in LinkedIn at that time. Now it's become much more popular really since the pandemic particularly. So it's been a gamble that's paid off well for me.
I think more people are paying attention to LinkedIn, partly because Instagram has changed so much over the last few years and gotten more complicated with things like Reels. It feels like LinkedIn is more accessible to people who don't want to be in their stories and Reels all day long. How do you think LinkedIn differentiates itself from other social media platforms?
Yeah, so one of the simplest things to think about is, why do people go to these platforms? So when someone opens their Instagram app to scroll through, they're generally doing it because they want to get a bit of distraction from everyday life, or maybe they're following people for health reasons, or they're following celebrities. Whereas when they're going to LinkedIn, because it is a business-to-business platform, you're going there already in a business frame of mind. So yes, I might see your content on Instagram and I might be attracted by it, but I'm not there to do business. Whereas when I open LinkedIn, I'm not on LinkedIn because I want to catch up with, I don't know, what's happening in Hollywood. I'm there because I want to connect with my business network and connections. And therefore you behave in a different way on LinkedIn as well as the individual. My favorite analogy, Audrey, on this is if you can treat LinkedIn as though it were your favorite industry conference. So prepare for LinkedIn in the way. So imagine you and I are going to a conference for agency owners. How would we prepare for that conference? We would probably dress in the way that we want our ideal clients at the conference to see us as professional agency owners. We would probably check out who's going to be speaking at the event and plan out our days. When you think about preparing for LinkedIn, that's really optimizing your profile, making sure you look your best professional self on your LinkedIn profile. When you go to the conference, when you open up LinkedIn, you behave in a way that you would meeting people, having conversations as if you would in real life. A way to describe this is if you go to, say, we go to a conference together and you walk in the door, you don't walk around handing out your business card to everybody without speaking and then leaving without having any conversations. So why would you do that any differently on LinkedIn? When you go to LinkedIn and you connect with somebody, because maybe you're both following the same speaker at the conference on LinkedIn, and you meet somebody in the comments, you connect with that person and say, did you enjoy what Audrey said there on stage? Or, oh, I saw we both attended Audrey's talk. What did you think of it? You wouldn't just send them a connection request without a message and walk away. So if you can kind of turn your mindset to think, well, how do I approach this as though I was actually at an in-person event or networking event?
What stands out is how people behave differently on LinkedIn. While it's still social, there's a professional lens to everything on LinkedIn. I used to feel that for a social media platform, it was buttoned up and it wasn't my cup of tea. But over the last year, I've changed my mind. And it goes back to your analogy of going to a conference. If you go to a stuffy, buttoned up conference, that's what you get. But if you go to a conference where people want genuine and authentic connections, you'll likely get that outcome. And as soon as you mentioned conference, it got me thinking about good practices for attending events and networking. Most of us who go to an in-person event know that handing out a bunch of business cards at random doesn't work. And the same applies to LinkedIn. Like you said, you wouldn't just send a connection request and then walk away. So how do you approach building authentic connections on LinkedIn?
So if you're brand new to LinkedIn, think about people you know in your real life, not that LinkedIn's not your real life, but in your people you've met at local business networking events, and start connecting with those people. If they work in a similar industry to yours or similar space to yours, it's quite likely that people who are in their LinkedIn network could be the kind of people that you want to connect with. So that is an easy way to make a connection with somebody. So maybe you've started your profile, you've got maybe 100 people that you've gone to events with and you've met and you've connected with those people over the last few months. When they start posting content on LinkedIn, see who else is commenting underneath their posts. You will see that person's name, photograph, and headline. And the people who are the most interesting to you in your business, whether it's potential customers or people you might collaborate with, or people you're just interested in what they talk about, their headline will tell you a little bit about them. And then you click on their profile and you read a little bit more about what they do. And then it's an easy connection request. You just connect with them and say, oh, hi, I saw your comment under Sarah's post. I also go to Minneapolis for my networking events. I'd love to add you to my network. I was doing a workshop this week with a company, and they said, like, how do you make these connection requests? And we said, like, it's really quite tricky. And I said, just be honest. Just say, I've decided that I want to invest some time on LinkedIn and I'm building up my network. I hope we can connect. I'm not sure what person would say no to that. And if they did say no to that, because that is a genuine message, then you probably don't want them in your network anyway. So finding people you know that you've met in real life on LinkedIn and connecting with them, that's easy because you just say, oh, we go to the same networking event, or I know you work with my cousin Bill or whatever. And then connect with people that they are connected to, who you find through their comments or you find through their activity on other people's comments and posts. And you say, oh, hi, I see that you know, I found you because you were commenting on Audrey's post and it would be nice to add you to my network. Or genuinely just say, I'm building up my LinkedIn network and I was hoping I could add you to my network.
I love the intention and simplicity you shared. Right. When someone messages me on LinkedIn and it's genuine, of course, I will say yes to being connected. Now, what's challenging is that bait and switch. You know, when you get a message that sounds genuine and after the first connection, you get bombed with sales messages. What doesn't work for me is when I get a LinkedIn message that says, hey, I noticed you're not doing this well. Let me sell you something so you can do it better. Or you get a connection that asks super pointed questions and it feels almost templated and meant to lead you down their sales funnel. And that doesn't work for me. There's a yucky feeling when that happens. Like part of me is like, okay, that strategy must not work. And yet the other part of me is like, oh, it has to be working to some extent because there's so much of it. You know, but to be clear, I'm all about genuine connection. So you won't find me bait and switching. I'm just curious, how common are you seeing that happen on LinkedIn? Like, what are your thoughts on those strategies?
So Audrey, can I tell you that I'm getting a lot of these at the minute because, and I worked out why. So I have a YouTube channel and I hit a milestone recently. I got 1 million views on YouTube. So I was so excited about it, right? Of course I was. So I posted about it on LinkedIn and I did a couple of posts. I wrote hashtag YouTube on the post. Well, the floodgates have opened for all of these people to say, I can help you grow your YouTube channel. Like, no, go away.
Oh, yeah, it happens for my podcast too, because I post about new episodes. I get several messages a week from people on LinkedIn about helping me grow my podcast when I've never shared a post looking for that help.
So be aware that the search facility on LinkedIn is very strong, okay? And the hashtags absolutely do work. So if you don't want to be bombarded by people trying to sell you a particular thing for YouTube or podcasts, probably drop that out of your post for a while. But one thing I want to say is if you're not used to LinkedIn, you don't have to accept these people's requests. They are business people. So just ignore it's either ignore or accept. I ignore continually all of those. And now that I'm so used to LinkedIn, I can kind of tell when people are going to be trying to jump into sales messages in my DMs. One got past me though last week and it was like, oh, that was interesting because the way he'd written it came across very genuine initially. He said, this is a guy, and he said that he really liked what I was doing with my YouTube channel, and it seemed really authentic, and he had people that I was connected to as well. And did I have a Patreon or anything? Because he'd like to, support me. And I thought, that is so nice. And I've never really got a message like that before. So I fell for it. And I said, oh, that's so kind. Yes, I do. I have a buy me a coffee thing that I set up years ago. No one ever does buy me a coffee, by the way. But anyway, so he then sent me a message, and it was about 5 days later, and he said he had flu. Don't believe him. He said, oh, that's great that you have buy me a coffee, but actually, we have this other tool that people can support you with. Would you be interested in a video? And I was like, no, I would not. Go away.
And there is the bait and switch. I think like most of us, I want to work with real people who care. The challenge with bait and switch is that it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. You get turned off by that person or that company forever. So yes, don't disguise your pitch as a desire to connect, but sending genuine messages is good practice.
I strongly believe when you connect with somebody, you should always send a message. And when I do classes on this, people say, but Louise, if I do it on mobile, it's already sent. So when you're on your LinkedIn mobile app and you want to connect with somebody with a message, instead of clicking on connect, click on the 3 little dots to the right hand side of that, and a menu pops up and it says personalize invite. So you can do a message on the mobile app. And the reason I like that, apart from the analogy, don't go to a conference and just throw out your business cards at everybody. When you connect with somebody with a message and you say, oh, I really like what you said about XYZ, or we met at this conference in San Diego. When that person pops up in your feed in 6 months' time, or sends you a message in 6 months' time and says, Louise, actually, we're really interested in outsourcing our LinkedIn. Can we have a conversation? I can see the previous message that we exchanged that we had. So I can go, who's that person? Oh, yes, I met them in San Diego, because it literally says it in the previous message. So you can use those messages as a little way of keeping track of previous things you've talked about or how you met somebody. People don't want to be sold to on LinkedIn. It is a bit of a longer game. It is more about raising your visibility and being seen as an expert in your field or industry. And that is how you get business on LinkedIn. It is not, if you do a post on LinkedIn selling your services, you will get very little engagement on it. But you could tell a story about working with a client on that same service. And really important, if you ask a question at the end of that post and people start to engage on it, by which I mean commenting or liking it, it gets shown to a lot more people. A lot more people are reading it because it's a story, and we are all about human beings connecting on a platform. And the more you focus on sharing helpful tips and advice and stories of people you've worked with in your content, you're so much more likely to get referrals and business than if you just put posts out that try and sell your services all the time, because people don't want to be sold to, but also people will not engage with that content, so it gets seen by less people.
I love that you're pointing to something most people don't want to hear. Social media is a long game. Wouldn't it be ideal to post something and immediately make a sale every time? Of course, it rarely works that way unless you spent time building out your thought leadership. So most of us know it's true. Social media is an investment of time.
I know.
Consistency is really the key. You're likely to get better results when you show up in some ways over others. For example, as you mentioned, posting about something you're selling or want people to buy over and over again will turn people off. So far, we've been talking about building credibility, engagement, and thought leadership on LinkedIn. Now, those are passive ways to sell to attract businesses or attract clients. What are some more proactive ways to sell on LinkedIn? What are the effective strategies or tools you see working to get more clients now?
Yes. So here's where, so I never post something that sells something on LinkedIn. However, there are tools that people can use that they may not be aware of. Number one, there's a brand new custom button for premium account users. A premium account is a LinkedIn business account. So it's the one with the little yellow gold buttons that people get, and they cost around $50 a month. With that account, you can add a custom button to your profile, and mine says book an appointment. So it not only sits on your introductory card, which is on your personal profile at the top where you have your name, your headline, if you went to college, all that stuff at the very top of your profile. It sits on there. It can also say view my portfolio or visit my website. There's about 5 different options. Mine says book an appointment and takes people directly to my inquiry form. That's not the brilliant part about it. The brilliant part about it is under every single post that I write, it sits underneath my headline and it's in bold letters, and I'm getting people booking appointments through it. And that's only been introduced in the last couple of months. So that is a really great little tool. You do need to have the premium custom or the premium service to have that. But I think that's a great little tool. The other thing is getting people from your LinkedIn activity to your email list. It's not that hard, Audrey, because, for example, I'm running a free training this week on how to use video on LinkedIn, and it's completely free. It's a 45-minute training. Then it's going to be Q&A. And yes, I'm going to pitch an offer at the end. People don't need to stay for that. So it's a webinar. It's the old-fashioned webinar. I'm sharing that link on LinkedIn, and a percentage of my network are interested enough that they will sign up for that. And that takes them from being on my social media to joining my email list where I can nurture them further. So you could do a monthly online class, or some people have a free lead magnet that they might give away, and that can sit on your profile underneath the introductory card in what's called the featured section. So this is a really lovely space on a profile. And if you're listening to this and thinking, I haven't got a featured section, Louise, it's only because you haven't actually added it. So it's one of these spaces on your profile. You have to add it in. It doesn't appear and you populate it. You have to actually actively add it in. And it's called the highlighting area. So with that, on the featured section, if you have like a free download or something, you can put that in there. And you can also put a link into your website there. So there's lots of areas that you can get people from LinkedIn to your email list, to your website, to book an appointment, if you're clever enough about it. So you can do all your content can be raising your thought leadership, showcasing your services, sharing your podcast episodes. But there are areas that you can directly lead people to sign up for a call with you. The other option is occasionally, depending on how someone has written their message, I will say, well, would you like to have a call to discuss that? What I mean by this is I've been on some really brilliant podcasts like this one here, and people will say, oh, I heard you on Audrey's podcast and I really liked what you said. LinkedIn's something I've been struggling with for a while. Now, to me, that is they're telling me they're struggling with LinkedIn. So maybe I could offer them some free resources. So I'll say, well, I have a whole YouTube channel of free content you could watch. Or if you like, I have a guide that you can download, and here's the link to sign up for it if you want. If you don't want to, not a problem, but the option's there. And that is a very soft sales way of getting people again onto your email list, so you can nurture that relationship. So there's lots of little techniques you can use.
LinkedIn's book an appointment link in every post is 100% brilliant. It reminds people they can work with me without me having to make a call to action in every post. I'm giving that new feature a go right now. And yes, like all social channels, the ability to move people from being a follower of your channel into your email list is always gold. It's good to hear that some tried and true strategies like asking followers to sign up for webinars or providing free opt-in continue to work well on LinkedIn. So the conversation about algorithms comes up a lot when we're discussing content on a social media platform. Users can't control that, but being informed helps with content creation. For example, Instagram's algorithm prioritizes video. What are LinkedIn's algorithms prioritizing?
I think the LinkedIn platform itself doesn't really want people to leave LinkedIn. So if you can share useful information on the platform, say if you think about, okay, so for our clients, we write 3 posts a week for their company page. That's 12 posts across a month. So maybe 2 of those posts are going to tell people the services that we have to sell. And the other posts are kind of drumming up the engagement. The more you post on LinkedIn, and I don't mean not like 3 times a day, but maximum once a day. But the more you post on LinkedIn and the more you post in a conversational way, the more people see your posts, the more they are shown your next set of posts. So that's what I mean by drumming up interest. So if your company page or your personal profile posts are a source of really useful information to people, that they start to engage with you and comment on your content, then when you actually present something, we've been working on this particular new offer, if you're interested, let me know, that post will not get the same amount of comments, but it will get a lot of views because you have been working consistently on having those relationships with your network. So people will see it, and a percentage of people will ask you about it. They might not ask you today, but they might ask you the next time you talk about it. So yeah, the LinkedIn platform, people are funny, Audrey, about links on LinkedIn posts. The jury's out. Do you put your link in your post or do you put it in your comments? Those are the kind of things I don't honestly pay too much attention to, because that's like, can I have a cheat sheet guide to using LinkedIn, please? I think if you are showing up, starting useful conversations about whatever it is your product or service is, building a network, what I call a network of value. So people who are genuinely interested in you and your business, and you're interested in what they're doing. And that, again, go to the conference that suits you. You and I will go to a conference that's built for agency owners. I'm not going to a conference that is for Facebook ads experts, because if I'd walk in there, what would I talk about? I wouldn't, oh, how's your business going? The conversation would dry up pretty fast. So build a network around you who are interested in what you have to say, and you're interested in what they have to say, because that actually makes your job of commenting on other people's posts so much easier. And actually, that's a great tip for everybody. So as much as it's important to share your own content on LinkedIn, it is as important that you are commenting on other people's content. Their network will see your name and your profile, and it increases your visibility and increases the number of people who click on your profile to find out about you and raise interest in you. So don't forget to comment on other people's content as well as sharing your own content on LinkedIn.
When you're a busy business owner, you want to maximize your time on activities that create results. One high value activity that you've mentioned on LinkedIn is engaging and commenting with the right audience. How much time do you spend doing those activities? Or if it's not time bound, what do we need to consider?
I say if you can go into LinkedIn like twice a week and connect with people who are going to be relevant to your business and comment on every time you're in LinkedIn, comment on 3 or 4 posts. Honestly, Audrey, there's so little engagement in terms of comments and posts that are interesting on LinkedIn. It's just past a billion users. I think they say like something like either 1% to 3% of people actually post anything on LinkedIn. So it is still wide open to be really seen as a thought leader in your space. And when you comment on someone else's post, and if you do it really strategically, and that could be somebody you want to work with, somebody you've got your eye on to enroll in your program or work with your agency, or somebody who serves the same client base as you, so you know those people are following this person on LinkedIn, and you comment on that post, and then you're seen by that person and their network. It's just so powerful. I can't really underestimate it, underemphasize how strong it is. But you don't need to do a lot of it to make a huge impact. And that's the beauty of it. And you can use a scheduling tool like Hootsuite or Cloud Campaign, but you can actually now schedule directly on LinkedIn. So if you're thinking, right, 2024, I'm going to give a real good go at LinkedIn, say to yourself, I'm going to commit to 3 months. What could I talk about over 3 months? So you grab yourself a bit of pen and paper, or you work with somebody like me, and then you say, right, here's 3 months. I've definitely got 3 core content areas I can speak about. And then you kind of break them down into subheadings. So pretend you're a LinkedIn agency owner. You might talk about LinkedIn company pages, LinkedIn personal profiles, how to help your team to use LinkedIn to raise the profile of the company. That could be my 3 buckets. Underneath that, I can say, okay, well, I can easily write 2 posts under each one of those. And there's my content for the next 6 weeks. So maybe you have a VA who'll create some graphics for you. Maybe you don't. But create 6 posts. It's not going to be a huge amount of effort because it's not like having to create a TikTok or an Instagram reel, you know? So create some content, go into LinkedIn and schedule it out for the next 6 weeks. The key thing is don't just schedule it and forget it and go back in 6 weeks, because if you are not in LinkedIn connecting and commenting on other people's stuff and someone comments on your stuff and you reply to their comment, you do need to actually nurture this a little bit. But do that for 3 months and check your data, your analytics on LinkedIn. It will tell you the number of profile views you have. It will tell you the number of post impressions you have, and see if this is working and is it turning into actual conversations that are leading to business. And if it is, then continue it for the rest of the year, but give it 3 months.
I have to highlight a few nuggets of wisdom you just shared. First is strategic engagement. I've shared with my clients that strategic connections are about keeping things simple, like having 20 people in your network list and staying top of mind with the 20. LinkedIn is one of those channels you can use. You can be strategic about following somebody you want to work with and adding value to their LinkedIn content, or building relationships with someone who serves the same client base as you. I'm so glad you highlighted the strategic engagement. And I love how you simplified a content plan for LinkedIn. To get you started, it can be as simple as 3 content pillars, 2 posts per pillar scheduled over a few weeks. Now, we can't get away from video content on many platforms. It's taking over social media. What are some best practices for using video on LinkedIn?
Do not put a video on LinkedIn without captions, because nobody turns the sound on. And I think the ideal length of video really is between 3 and 4 minutes, not really any longer, because people, unless you are like, you know, absolutely fabulous orator and people, you know, just want to hear everything you have to say, I recommend 3 to 4 minutes is long enough to capture someone's attention. And remember, in the caption above the video, kind of explain what the video is about and ask people a question and get people to engage underneath it. So the metrics on the video posts don't look as good as the number of impressions that a text post gets. However, in my experience, clients are getting faster conversions to leads from using the video, because how do you know if somebody is somebody you'd like to work with? You can't really beat the person on screen. Their personality comes across, their level of knowledge comes across, and we just connect with them so much faster through watching them talk on video than we do through reading something that's written in a text post. So I'm really excited about it. I think LinkedIn are very keen for video, and uploading the video natively onto LinkedIn as well, not just sharing it from somewhere else, I think is really powerful. And, I just think it's a really valuable tool. And if you think about where we are in terms of the AI space at the minute, there are a lot of people who are using AI to write their posts on LinkedIn. Well, right now, AI cannot replicate me in my video talking on screen. So it's like a double trust factor, I think, because a lot of people are writing stuff and you're just like, is that written by AI or is that written by that person? I can't quite tell. Some of them it's very obvious, but some of them you can't quite tell. Whereas video, it's that person speaking. For now, 2025 might be a different story.
Yes, let's talk about AI. I do feel like I have a radar for when copywriting is AI generated. Still, I think that's because I'm more exposed to AI and what it does and what it can do. Louise, you and I are in marketing. Your agency supports clients to market using LinkedIn. I support marketing agencies, so I'm familiar with what is and isn't working in marketing. So the nature of what we do involves discussion about AI. But take my husband, he's a chef. He's never used AI like we have and couldn't tell if captions are AI generated. So knowing your audience is important. There will be audiences with a better nose for AI generated content, but does that make written content less impactful overall? I think it doesn't make the written word less impactful. Instead, it has to be more human, infused with things that AI can't replicate, like real life examples.
It's really funny because with other LinkedIn consultants, we kind of have a joke about it, like, oh, that's definitely AI because it's got so many emojis in it. And then I think, well, I put emojis in my posts. Does that mean people think that mine are written by AI? LinkedIn are embracing AI themselves, not in terms of writing your posts, but there's tools in the premium features to write your about section and your headline using AI. People that I know who've tested it out are not impressed with the results. But as we know, AI just gets better the more it's used, so it could change. I think that if a post, if you can, I think that we shouldn't ignore AI. I certainly have used it in terms of thinking about what videos to create for my YouTube channel, not for my LinkedIn network, because because I've been doing it a while, I'm very comfortable in knowing what I want to say to my LinkedIn network and how I want to say it. But one way to be sure that your content does not look like it's written by AI is to put in real life examples of when you did something. So, AI could write a post about this podcast, absolutely, but it wouldn't be able to put in anything about your personality or my personality because it literally wouldn't know who we are. So there's something around that you can use AI as a tool to say, so maybe you say I'm going to do what Louise said, I'm going to do 3 months of content planned out for LinkedIn. I work in leadership development. So I'm going to go to AI and I'm going to say, please give me 3 core topics to talk about in terms of leadership development on LinkedIn. And it will give you these topics. And then you could say, could you please split these into subtopics, 3 subtopics under each of the core topics? And it will give you that. And that's something that you can then take to work with to write your own posts based off of those headlines or subheadings. We use human writers, which sounds like such a weird thing to say, but like in 2022, I wouldn't have had to say that, but now I do in 2023. And actually our clients prefer that. And I say, oh no, we have human writers. No, oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. But AI is something I'm not taking my eye off. And like I say, I do use it to plan out ideas for my YouTube channel. Doesn't mean that I necessarily use them, but it is a good way to kind of to get your brain thinking down a certain route.
100%. Sometimes you just need a kickstart to get that creativity flowing. Between my LinkedIn newsletter, this podcast, and social media, I create enough content to see the benefits of ChatGPT for brainstorming. Yeah, it helps me create faster, but I wouldn't rely on it for replicating my voice. And of course, it doesn't have access to my lived experiences and stories. Louise, before we wrap up here, I have to get your take on Sales Navigator. What are your thoughts on using it to support marketing and sales activities on LinkedIn?
Okay, so this is so interesting because I literally had a conversation about Sales Navigator earlier today. Sales Navigator is a tool that it's not on LinkedIn's own platform. It's actually a separate platform, but it allows you to build up lists of people who are similar. So we could go in and create a list of podcast marketing managers on the West Coast of the US who their podcasts they have 2 hosts or something, or they work for companies where the revenue is over a certain amount, and build up that list. And then you can send messages to people. What I didn't realize, Audrey, was if I sent a message to you using Sales Navigator, it does not connect through to the message I might have sent you on LinkedIn itself, which is a bit odd. So I could have had a conversation with you on LinkedIn and then started one on Sales Navigator, and they don't correlate. This, your message response to me in Sales Navigator does not appear on the LinkedIn platform Messenger. So that's a bit odd. If you're going to use Sales Navigator, you need to get trained on how to use it effectively. The Sales Navigator expert I was speaking to earlier today said that in his experience, you need to spend 2 hours a day in Sales Navigator to really make it work for you. And I, as a small business owner, I do not have that time or space. I have found that the advanced search on LinkedIn itself will filter and find people for me in a way that I can then reach out and send personalized messages and requests to. And I suppose for your listeners, it is how many clients do they need in a year to make their business work? So if they sell widgets at $10 or $15 and they need tens of thousands of clients, then mass outreach, yes. But if they need 5 clients a month, wouldn't their time be better spent finding out who those people are, connecting with them with a personalized message and nurturing those relationships, and without forking out for Sales Navigator and spending time there? I know that people sell Sales Navigator training because a lot of organizations and companies want it, and it works perfectly for a large multinational who, to be honest, don't really care spending $70 a head on their team to have Sales Navigator and possibly not be using it effectively. For smaller agencies, I think you're using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. And I don't think you need to worry too much about it. I would prefer you had a focused, personalized outreach to people rather than sending them in mails, is what they're called on LinkedIn, these messages to people that you use through Sales Navigator. And I think you can build your business without it. But it's definitely worth looking into for sure.
Thank you, Louise, for sharing your insights on using LinkedIn for marketing. What a great reminder to end this episode. The core to great marketing is clarifying your goals and identifying if the strategy or tactic meets the goal, which applies to any platform and tool. And if you're a small business and there's a more straightforward way to get to your goal, the simpler way will save you both time and money. Louise, last question. Where can people find you online?
Oh, well, they can find me on LinkedIn. So it's Louise Brogan, Brogan, and I'm on LinkedIn, and my website is louisebrogan.com. And if they want to check out all that free training over on YouTube, it's called LinkedIn with Louise.
Louise, thank you so much. Hey there, thanks for hanging out with me at the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you hit the follow or subscribe button in your podcast app and share it with a friend. I'll see you on the next one.